Hey, it's Madison Chase. It's yes or no. It's your entertainment source or news option. And today I'm joined by my girl in Wickety Wick, Wisconsin. Say hey to the people.
Hey guys, how's it going today on this Friday? It's Friday.
It is Friday, yeah. Okay, so today, if you haven't noticed, we're talking about the ESPY. So we're talking about sports, kind of, sort of, and we're also talking about LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, and who else is there? Chris Paul, LeBron James, and Dwayne Wade.
Tomorrow, yeah, Carmelo Anthony.
Yes, and I'm going to turn my ringer off. Okay. So I'm going to actually read the speech and we can discuss kind of the questions after I read the speech. So here's a speech that they gave. It's transcribed. I will put the link in the video for you guys to watch. So Carmelo Anthony starts by saying, "Good evening. Tonight is a celebration celebrating our accomplishments and our victories. But in this moment of celebration, we asked to start the show tonight this way. The four of us talking to our fellow athletes with the country watching, because we cannot ignore the realities of the current state of America. The events of the past week have put a spotlight on the injustice, distrust, and anger that plagues so many of us." I like that he said so many of us because it takes it away from color and it's more about the issue of just distrust overall.
Yes, it was a very smart speech. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I don't want to
very
interrupt you.
smart. Whoever wrote it, kudos to them. The system is broken. The problems are not new. I love that he said that. The violence is not new, and the racial divide definitely is not new. But the urgency to create change is at an all-time high. That was Carmelo Anthony, who publicly went out on his social media page and really asked athletes to really, use their platforms and their voice. So Chris Paul said, "We stand here tonight accepting our role in uniting communities to be the change we need to see. We stand before you as fathers, sons, husbands, brothers, uncles, and in my case, as an African-American man and the nephew of a police officer who is one of the hundreds of thousands of great officers serving this country. But Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Tamir Rice, Eric Garner, Laquan McDonald, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, this is also our reality. Generations ago, legends like Jesse Owens, Jackie Robinson, Muhammad Ali, John Carlos, and Tommy Smith, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Jim Brown, Billie Jean King, Arthur Ashe, and countless others, they set a model for what athletes should stand for. So we choose to follow in their footsteps. Dwayne Wade, the racial profiling has to stop. The shoot to kill mentality has to stop. Not seeing the value of Black and brown bodies has to stop. But also the retaliation has to stop. The endless gun violence in places like Chicago, Dallas, not to mention Orlando, it has to stop. Enough is enough. Now as athletes, it's on us to challenge each other to do even more than we already do in our communities. And the conversation, it cannot stop as our schedules get busy again. It won't always be convenient. It won't always be comfortable, but it is necessary. LeBron James closes it out and he says, "We all feel helpless and frustrated by the violence. We do, but that's not acceptable. It's time to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, what are we doing to create change? It's not about being a role model. It's not about our responsibility to the tradition of activism. I know tonight we're honoring Muhammad Ali, the GOAT. But to do his legacy any justice, let's use this moment as a call to action for all professional athletes to educate ourselves. It's for these issues, speak up, use our influence, and renounce all violence. And most importantly, go back to our communities, invest our time, our resources, help rebuild them, help strengthen them, help change them. We all have to do better. Thank you." And that's how the speech ended. So,
yeah. I don't know if you saw it live, but I had tuned in to watch it, and I tell you, I just started bawling. I didn't expect it. It wasn't dramatic. It was straight. It was to the point, and it wasn't, I get, like, there's no way you could disagree with what they were saying, because, you know, like a lot of people with this Black Lives Matter, they want to go every life matters, and it's like people are just not understanding the whole process in that when they say Black Lives Matters. At least that's my opinion, because it's like, I mean, we talked about this earlier. It's like you bring the car in because the taillight's broken and the mechanic says other things are wrong too. Like, you got to fix the taillight first. You know what I mean? It's just very interesting that they didn't make it, like, there's nothing that was controversial about this speech. It was just a statement, a fact, and a powerful statement.
Yes, it was definitely a powerful statement. And I think, you know, I guess the first question, there were so many things, and this is such a convoluted issue. One of the things that stands out most to me about this speech is that he said, this isn't anything new. Like, I think because we have cameras on our cell phones, now we're just now starting to know what has been happening for centuries. And an interesting thing, and we could talk about it another time, but I'll put that link up as well. Wendy Williams, who's a huge, you know, gossip columnist, and she's always talking about things that matter. She made a comment about Jesse Williams' speech, which we've talked about, and she also made a comment about historically Black colleges and universities and why do we need them. And so Roland Martin, who's he's a commentator. He used to work for CNN. Now he works for Radio 1 News 1, which is predominantly for African Americans to get news about things that are happening in our community. And one of the things that he did, he really educated her, because some Black people, and that's the thing that's so big about this issue, is that you have some African Americans who don't know. Like Wendy Williams had no idea why historically Black colleges and universities were necessary, because he did a whole segment on slavery in 1619 to 1800, and then like what happened in the 1960s and the civil rights movements in the 1970s. And he was like, so essentially we've only had freedom and the right to have education, because he was like, in slavery times, if a Black person or an African American person tried to educate and learn and read or whatever, we were killed for just the simple fact of trying to educate ourselves and understanding and learning how to read. So when you break that down, he was like, we've only been free for 40 years. So when people say we don't need historically Black colleges and universities, we needed them because we couldn't be educated. So I just think this is such a huge convoluted issue that you have some African Americans who are still very polarized with certain things. But let's ask the question. So the first question is sports a universal language? And what do you think, Steph?
I think it is. I feel like sports, and this is, I think, why I was so touched at this speech, was the timing of it. You know, you think of sports, you think of these guys day in, day out, they compete against each other, and here they are banding together. I believe these four guys were on vacation together before this, so I'm sure that when everything was happening, they were talking about it. But at the end of the day, when you go to a sports game, there is a person there from every race, every age, every sexual orientation, every religious belief, like every single person, like there's every single kind of person that cheers for sports. You know what I'm saying? It's like the one thing that we can all understand. I'm not saying everyone has to be the biggest sports fan in the world. If you are at a sporting event and you're rooting for the New York Jets and I'm rooting for the New York Jets, it doesn't matter. As long as the New York Jets are doing well, we get along. It's the one place where everyone drops whatever they are, whatever they believe, whatever they're being, whatever their fears are, and they all join together. And to me, that's one of the most amazing things. So there was no better place than for them to use this platform to send this message.
I really wish I could agree with you, Steph. Here's why. Not that I'm not a big sports fan. Like, that has nothing to do with it. But here's the thing. I think the majority of athletes come from systems where, and not, I'm not going to say the majority, but a lot of them, where they're not athletes like Muhammad Ali, where they don't use their platforms to make a difference. So on that regard, it can, but I also think that it creates an even bigger divide when we look at, you know, how many African Americans actually own teams. And when you look at that bigger picture, and when you look at who actually owns teams, they're not African American. So I know this is probably not the answer you wanted to hear, but I don't know.
No, it's not about that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I'm not saying who's like if it's equal for races and money and this and that. I'm saying at the core, there is no other thing in the world that makes fans, like if you go to a rock concert, people still are like, you know, divided because of a certain type of music. I'm saying when you go to a sporting event, take all that business aside, event, say if I'm, you know, a really super hard Christian, and the person next to me is Jewish, you don't know that. If our team's winning, we're high-fiving. Like, you've never seen someone stop a high five, like a white person and a black person stop a high five and judge color. It's like all that stuff, if you're all rooting for the same team, takes a time out and you enjoy something together, which takes me back to the point that we all can get along, but we see all these different things. But in that moment of celebration, there's not differences because you're both rooting for the same thing. Fan, I'm not talking about as the athlete, the owner, the business of it. I'm talking about as a fan. It's the one language that speaks to so many different kinds of people, and they all hear the same message: a win, a loss, our team's losing and coming back, an underdog, a cheater. You know what I mean? Like all that stuff is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. I mean, but I guess I think for me, like the bigger picture is when we look at what happened in the civil rights movement, and the only thing that people really started to hear was when African Americans stopped using public transportation. And they were like, nope, I'm not doing this. When we started really like banding together to say, okay, yes, the majority of us, you know, when we're looking at professional athletes, like I think the way that it could unify people is if those athletes decide to take a really big stand for the injustice that continues to happen day after day after day. And even though in the speech, I can't remember who said it, he said, we feel your pain too. But I think the big divide is more socioeconomic, where a lot of people that can't really identify with living in, you know, particular quote unquote neighborhoods where police tend to police more often. I think it's a harder thing for them to really identify with. So I think the thing that will unify people is if a lot of those athletes decide to really take a stand and, you know, don't play. Like that happened, I think, in the Olympics, where people were saying, I think it was Jesse Owens when he went to I think it was in Germany, and Hitler was, you know, doing what he was doing, and Jesse Owens, he still ran. And so people were kind of really divided about, should he go to the Olympics or not and represent us when we're fighting our own battles in our country. But again, the Jewish people in Germany were fighting the battle too. So I think it's bigger than just, you know, sports unifying people. I don't agree that it doesn't unify people, but I think it also, the bigger picture, not looking at the bigger picture it's not going to really create a change. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying it does unify people, but you got to look at the big picture, and the big picture is.
I'm not saying does it or does it not unify people. I'm saying it's a universal language that is understood no matter who you are. That right. All that stuff gets dropped for a moment at a sports game. Like, have you ever seen, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like, have you ever seen a straight man to a gay man after the scoring touchdown midair stop a high five because he might think that that person looks different? No way. They high five. That's what I'm saying. Like, in that moment, it's like, I don't know anything else that makes people drop their guard the way that sports does. Like, it's a universal language in that. does it just by being the people in the arena change things? No. But I'm saying that for me, sports is that universal language where all kinds of different people are watching the ESPYs because they just want to see the athlete that inspires them, for them to use, you know what I mean, for them to say it then. It just, I don't know, it warmed my heart. I thought it was pretty cool.
No, I won't disagree that it unifies people, but I guess the part where I'm going to be a little I guess to help people see the bigger picture is, you know, will it create change? Will sports really create change? You know, speaking of some of the things that they were speaking of, like, I think.
Well, they need to do, I mean, I think what they're doing is a step in the right direction, but yes, if the question comes to will it create change, then yes. When people start, you know, locking out or doing this or, you know, striking or doing that, then that's when that, you know, will happen, like you were saying.
Yeah, and not even that I'm inciting that, but I think that's probably the direction that they're probably going to go. But I think beyond that, you know, when we look at how the media sees people of color, not just African Americans, because I know Latinos are having the same thing that we're dealing with in our communities too. They're facing the same challenges too. So I think on the grand scheme of things in the media, like, we have to see more images of people of color other than, you know, sports and big time athletes. And, you know, we have to see more images of them being, you know, just more than just being an athlete, a musician, stuff that we typically see. Like, I think we need to see.
Well, you know, I hate to use this as an example because I know it's kind of went sour, but when I was growing up, you had that. You had the Cosby Show.
Yeah, but that's my point. I'm saying we got to see more than just, you know, like, if you think about the television shows, like, so I think the way for change to happen is we have to start seeing more images of people of color, not just Black people, but also, I know, Latin people, Asian people. We have to stop seeing the stereotypical, you know, versions of themselves. And that's why I like that Chris Paul said that I'm a brother, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a cousin, I'm whatever. Like, he's a person too. And I think if we don't get to that part of the story where we intuitively all want the same thing, and people are people regardless of what they look like on the outside. So when we get to that and we start treating people as people, then I think that's where we'll see some change. Okay, so the other one is, second question, are award shows like the ESPYs a great platform for people to take a stand against whatever they want to stand for?
I definitely think they are. I mean, this isn't the first time we've seen something like this. And, you know, to have that platform and be able to talk about that and to take a stand. I mean, those four guys took a stand and said, this is how we want to open the show. And I'm sure that, you know, ABC, ESPN could have said no. And I believe in my heart that if they would have said no, those four guys would have been like, well, then we're not coming. Because to them, it was that important. And to me, that's exactly what, and I'm not saying that it's every athlete's responsibility. I don't want to get it twisted here, because I understand, like, at that stage of the game, it's a different life than you and I live, so we don't know. But the ones that do take that stand, I very greatly applaud.
I would agree with you, Stephanie, but I also think people need to, you know, if you're someone that supports people, like, I know for me, anyone that's not necessarily taking a stand, but you don't have anything to offer because you're kind of still living in your own world, I don't support people. And I've always been consistent with the people that I follow and support are people who use their platforms. So I wasn't following Carmelo Anthony, and I wasn't following Chris Paul, and I was not following, I was following LeBron James, but I was not following Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, and who else? Dwayne Wade. I wasn't following them on their social media pages, but because they made a stand, I'm going to follow them now. So I think if more people took that attitude that, yes, you should be using your platform instead of talking about your cars and your this and your that, then more people should, you know, do something different. So yes, I think it's a great place to actually voice your opinion, especially when so many people that support you are affected by what's happening in our world. So the last question is, do we think by hearing from athletes and celebrities taking a stand, whether it's on an awards show, on their social media pages, on television, do you think it will make a difference?
And I'm going to have to say yes. I'm going to say, I mean, it's not going to happen overnight. I'm not deluded here. But I think it is. I think that people were talking about it the next day. It starts a conversation. And you think, it's like, you think about a kid. A kid, if their parent has a conversation with them, they don't listen to their parent. They're rebellious. Now, if someone they idolize says, hey, man, you got to think. What's going on? Think twice. They're going to listen in a different way because there's a connection, but a disconnection that I think at a lot of times makes it stronger. So I definitely think it's going to make a change. And I definitely think these messages should keep coming. And I really think that the more and more celebrities that start saying this stuff, the more and more people will second guess because someone they look up to actually, you know, said for them to open their eyes and start thinking, you know?
Yes. And I would 100 and 1000% agree with you. I think the more and more people that are celebrities that have a platform that start speaking out and using their voice, it will eventually make a difference. But, you know, I think it's going to take everyone, and not just celebrities and athletes, but for people to just stand up for injustice and stand up for the things that are happening in our community. But I think the thing that's interesting, like if we look at any tragedies that have happened in our country, we tend to get amnesia and we tend to say, oh, you know what, whew, I made it out of that one. Whew, I'm so glad that's over. So I think it's got to be a constant and consistent conversation, and where people feel inspired, not just to voice their opinion, but they feel inspired to be a part of making a difference for someone other than themselves. So I think it's a great conversation, a great way to start. And so thanks, Steph, for wanting to do this topic. This is a great topic, and I feel like it's kind of a more inspiring, inspirational point of view than kind of what we've been talking about.
I'm with you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure to talk with you, sweetheart.
Yes, thanks, Steph. So I'll put all our social media in the hashtag below, but I'm on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and I've made all of my things private now because people have been saying some really mean things. So yeah, Steph, where can people find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram, IAMSTEFZ, and my YouTube is StepZTV. Keep the conversation going. I'd love to chat with you.
Yes, and I would love to hear your opinions on just kind of the speech that they gave, and if you guys think that it can make a difference. Thank you guys for watching. Bye, Steph.
Bye-bye.